Welcome back, everybody, to What Do You Know with Nick and Devin. I am Devin.
And I'm Nick.
Thanks for being here, everybody.
We should really get into some ASMR videos.
Would you want to get the ears, the special ear ones?
What is that?
Oh, wow. Okay.
What are you talking about?
The ear microphones.
Explain.
So you know ASMR, but you're not on that side of ASMR.
No, I know ASMR like colloquially, as people know ASMR.
Well, we are on different parts of the internet.
What are these ear microphones? What are you talking about?
So the ear microphones, they're you have a block and it has your left and your right audio.
Okay.
And then you put ear molds over them. And then you sexually lick and whisper into an ear, and it comes through one microphone or one headphone or the other. And you get a lot of money for it.
Okay, I'm not gonna lie, that does sound very interesting, but at the same time, horrifying.
Yeah, it's very wet sounding in your ear.
Oh, I'm sure. I'm already kind of like both cringing and like goosebump because of it.
Yeah,
Ugh.
that's there's a lot of that on Twitch and like Kick, and
Okay.
You can probably find it on TikTok and whatever. But
Sure.
the ASMR that comes on my FYP is all of the like, hey, you have ADD, let's have fun with that stuff. It's like, let's do an follow the pen, and like, hell yeah, this is great.
Like, son of a bitch, they got me again. Oh, shit.
It's like, sweet, I love this. I love following the pen and the light. Let's go. Oh, that color's green. Perfect.
I was like, Devin, you've been staring at the same video for the past 2 hours.
And I'm calm.
And I'm calm. We should do the ear thing, though. We should expand our content into ear
play,
Yep, into ear play.
ear ASMR.
I bet you we could. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Because then there's of course like the people that have like fun like textures that they put over their mic, and then like do something like this. Hold on, everybody, to your pants.
Oh yeah.
Do something like that.
Yeah. So do you enjoy like the concept of ASMR? Like, does that do anything for you? Like when people do that?
If done right and well. I just did a terrible job. Like you get that like tingly feeling, and that's always like, how did they get me like this? Like what? I haven't looked into it other than like what the hell. Like when I first heard of ASMR, I was like, what is it?
Sure.
And I was like, oh, this unexplained tingly feeling. Like what the fuck? Like no one knows why or how. And I think that's what interests me. And then, of course, like the ADHD tests are like phenomenal, where it's like, oh, we're going to give you an ear exam or like an eye exam. I'm like, cool.
I think we should create another profile that does ASMR content, ear play. I think with your Dateline voice and like ASMR.
And your gentle touch.
My gentle touch. There's nothing we can't do.
Right. We'll take over the ASMR world.
And our subscribers will be the first to know.
Right. That's what our exclusive Patreon
with
content
promo
is.
code EAR you can get
You get a discount code on that ear cleaning thing with the camera, so you can look into your ear.
Have you done that?
Yeah.
And
well, I'm really weird about the inside of my ears.
tell me more.
I just clean them out all the time.
Q-tips?
Yeah.
Devin.
Well,
I mean, I do that too, but like,
I know
you're not supposed to.
I know. But I do. And so then when our friend Alicia came by, she got one. She came over and used it on myself and Allie. And I was like, oh, my ear canal is very straight. Weirdly, I thought it would be a little
wavy.
Yeah, very straight. But it was very clean at the time. So
what does that mean?
I don't know what it means. I was just surprised at how straight it was.
Yeah, I wonder if it's like a palm reading, like depending on your ear canal.
Yeah, I wonder if like because it's so straight, like that's why I constantly have to clean it out, because like there's the earwax production factory in there is just insane.
Bananas.
And I wonder if like it affects your hearing or not. I don't know.
I got nothing.
Well, we'll bring in an ear doctor one day.
I'll bring in my ENT.
Yeah, perfect.
I'm sure Dr. Crossman would love to see me again in this setting.
Exactly.
We'll go to him. We'll go to LaGrange Hospital and
Perfect.
we'll do a guest episode with Dr. Crossman. Perfect. Also, Devin, tell us about your shirt.
Oh, this is Come and Go.
I thought I was really gonna try to hold that in. I was like as serious as I can.
It's a serious place of business.
Truly.
Come and Go is a Midwest staple. Really more of like the western part of Midwest, I believe. So like Iowa.
It's actually just
Iowa, right? It's a gas station. It's place where you can buy snacks, gas, shirts, swag. It is unfortunately has been bought by a different company, and the name is changing. So if you see a Come and Go today, make sure you go buy all the swag you can before it's out.
Go, go, go. Run, run, run.
To Come and Go.
Yeah. Go, go, go. Run, run, run. Your turn.
To Come and Go.
Thank you. Think we can get them to sign off on that?
Well, since
Copyright
the name's
TM.
changing.
Probably not.
Probably not.
Also, you said the Midwest, and it made me think, do you feel like the Dakotas and Nebraska and Oklahoma are like the Midwest?
I don't think Oklahoma is. I
But
think
you consider Nebraska and the Dakotas the Midwest?
yeah, definitely the Dakotas.
I don't think so.
No?
I think like I just like don't get that sort of feel. Like they give me very like Western frontier vibes, you know?
Yeah. Well, they're the plain states.
Yeah, it's a lot of it's a flat land.
Not in the Dakota. Well, the Dakotas have like the foothills, I think.
Oh, right. Okay.
And
But
the
still,
Badlands.
again, like I don't pull that into the Midwest. I feel like we're very I don't know. That's it. That's all I have to say.
Okay. I don't think like Kansas and Tennessee are the Midwest.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I think if the Midwest is more of a northern part of America rather than the South.
So, yeah, that's fair. I also don't think like Missouri is the Midwest.
That to me just makes it in.
I feel like there's a line, right?
Yeah.
Because even like northern Indiana, sure. Central to southern, like Illinois and Indiana, absolutely not.
Yeah,
There's
they're
like a
little
cultural
different.
line that
Yeah.
can be like wrapped around, and it's not the Mason-Dixon.
No.
It's a little bit more north.
Well, because you have the Bible Belt,
Right.
That kind of stretches and kind of makes that line.
Right. But the Bible Belt's way far south.
Mm.
The Bible Belt's like Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia, Louisiana. Like that's all the Bible Belt.
I thought it went up a little bit.
Does it?
I don't know.
I don't know. Maybe a topic for another day.
Maybe.
I don't know if we need to.
No.
We're fine. If you're truly interested in the Bible Belt, you go do that research.
Right,
Yeah.
right. Have fun.
Anyway.
Okay. I am going to play you a song to see if you recognize it. And I don't want you to react until I hit pause.
Okay.
So I can edit this so we can avoid copyright.
Perfect.
But I want to see if you know the song.
Okay. So like stoicism until pause.
Well, you can like think about it because
Okay.
like if you have any fun facial reactions, I'll put that in the edit and just like blur out the song or whatever.
It's just like a sticker of my face.
yeah. All right, I'm gonna hit play. Ready?
Okay, I'm ready.
All right. Did you recognize that song?
The opening of the song sounded very familiar, just
Yeah.
like the banjo kind of ding.
Sure.
And then historically, 1814. I'm not sure. I know the War of 1812.
Right.
I don't know what happened in 1814.
Okay.
Maybe I do. Maybe I don't.
You probably do.
Okay. Where did you find this?
I've known that song since my childhood.
Did they like, teach it to you in school? Like, what is that?
I might have heard it in school, but I know my mom definitely played it to me a lot. Okay, so for those of you who weren't in the room with us because I had to edit it out for copyright reasons, that was the Battle of New Orleans as sung by Johnny Horton.
Yes, the infamous Johnny Horton.
Well, he is actually kind of famous.
Oh,
but,
okay, sorry.
no, it's okay.
Sorry, Johnny. Sorry, the Horton estate. My apologies.
So that is the topic for the day. What do you know about the Battle of New Orleans? New Orleans, as some might say.
We're okay.
All
Thank you, though. I don't think I know anything.
Okay.
Again, like I feel like I know the War of 1812.
Right.
I know like the Louisiana Purchase, like all of that.
Right.
I just don't know like specifically this battle.
Sure.
Is it a part of a greater war?
It is.
Okay.
Yes.
What war is that?
It is actually part of the War of 1812.
Oh, okay.
The Battle of New
Okay.
Orleans took place on January 8th, 1815. But the War of 1812 took place from 1812 to 1815.
Oh, I guess I didn't realize that it had gone that long.
I don't know why you'd call a war of 1 year when it spans 3 years, but whatever.
Fair. The 3-year war of 1812.
Right.
Fair.
So this war, the War of 1812, was fought between the U.S. and their native allies that they made.
Okay.
And then it was also versus the United Kingdom, their native allies, and then a little bit of Spain tossed in there.
Isn't that the overture for the War of 1812? Isn't it the 1812 overture?
That might be. That might have been from for the Napoleonic Wars, which were happening at the same time.
Not the
American
version. Okay.
I'm not sure though. So this whole bit was part of the 60 Years' War, which is just a historical era of military struggle for control of the North American Great Lakes region that spanned from 1754, so pre-American independence, to 1815.
Oh, okay.
Just a little fun fact.
I love that. Thank you.
So going back to the War of 1812, yeah, what's up?
Does that mean that this battle kind of ended this militaristic period?
It sure does.
Oh my God.
Look at you, critical thinking.
Clue. Perfect. It's like he laid it all out for us, folks. Mm-hmm.
So the War of 1812, like most wars of the time, was about expansion and trade.
Okay.
We're going to talk about a little bit of lead up to the Battle of New Orleans, and then we're going to talk about the battle itself.
Okay.
Because there's a lot of moving parts. It's a 3-year war.
Long war.
The newly formed country of America was getting frustrated with British restrictions they were imposing on trade with the French, running into them while trying to expand west, as well as British maritime rule. The UK had the largest navy at the time, so they were controlling the seas.
Yeah.
So tensions flared enough to the point where soon fighting began in the summer of 1812.
Okay.
So there's a lot of smaller struggles, smaller conflicts that, as far as I know, weren't enough to be called the whole ass war.
Okay. But like Catalyst 2.
Correct.
Got it.
Both sides were horribly underprepared to fight in another war. The Revolutionary War had ended not too long ago, relatively speaking, for a small new country.
Sure.
Britain is in another war at the same time with France, the Napoleonic War that we mentioned a little bit earlier.
Yeah.
And then America didn't have any really trained military. They had a very small militia that just didn't have a lot of formal training, at least especially compared to the British militia.
Yeah.
And there was just a lot of anti-war talk among the folk. No one was excited for this.
Fair. I feel like America doesn't really get a full military concept until like right before the Civil War, or like leading into the Civil War. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. I think because then you have two very like established militaries, like you're trying to, like you're saying. But I feel like we don't really fully get the idea until World War I.
Sure. Yeah,
like,
yeah.
I think weirdly, like the Civil War was like, yeah, this is a great training ground for military, and then like war and the world change entirely with technology.
Right. Fair. Mm-hmm.
No, but I think that's a good point. I think the militia doesn't really. It's a militia until we finally get a military. Mm-hmm. Good point.
Thank you.
So this war winds up getting divided into 3 different theaters, spelled R-E-S, not like E-R-S. So it's like theater.
Yeah, I appreciate the drama because of the British spelling of it.
So we have the Great Lakes and Canadian frontier where the war starts. Mm-hmm. There's the at-sea theater, which was mostly in the Atlantic and along the East Coast.
Okay.
And then there is the Southern States and Southwestern Territories, which is where we will be for today's episode.
Heard.
And the the Battle of New Orleans was at the climax at the late stage of the War of 1812. So this is where it's all gonna end, essentially.
Got it.
The British were trying to take West Florida and some of the Louisiana Territory, especially New Orleans, because that acted as an entry point along the Mississippi. Once they were able to get there, they were going to be able to go straight up to the Great Lakes and all of those territories up there. Easy.
Yep.
And so this push that the British were trying to do was part of their 5-month Gulf campaign, Gulf of Mexico.
Got it.
Now, at the time of the Battle of New Orleans, the War of 1812 had technically ended. This battle took place 15 days after the Treaty of Ghent was signed that was supposed to end the war.
Okay.
So the treaty was signed on Christmas Eve in 1814 in the city of Ghent in what is now Belgium, but didn't go into effect and wasn't ratified by the U.S. until February of 1815. And it's just because news traveled so slow. There was no way to communicate quickly. Like, hey, we're all good. We signed a treaty. We're not going to fight no more.
Right.
We're all cool beans. And it's like, no, we're still going to kill each other for several months afterwards.
That's like, did you ever watch All Quiet on the Western Front?
No, but I know the story.
So, right. So the ending of that is, I'm going to say spoiler, but also like there's two versions at this point. Like,
it's been
go
out
watch
for a
it.
while,
Right.
Yeah.
The ending of that is...
It's a book too, isn't it?
It's a book, yeah.
Okay.
And so the soldier, the main character, gets all the way through World War II to the end, and then they sign that it's done, like surrendering, all of that, everything's done, but then they set the date and time of when the war ends.
Right.
And his general is like, we still have time left to go kill
There's still some Nazis
people.
to kill.
Well, it's the German perspective.
Oh, right.
Right.
I forgot.
But we still have time to go kill some people.
Right.
And then, so they charge into battle. Anyone who doesn't charge into battle gets killed as a traitor.
Right.
Because there's time until the end of the war. And then he ends up dying.
I just don't
At the very last minute of the
course.
war. Mm-hmm.
I just don't get why I'm like, we're going to end it. What time is it right now? Right now.
Right. Just end it when it's done. It's done. You signed it. Right.
Where's the sun in the sky? It's going to be...
Right. We'll give it a couple hours.
Like, what does next week look for you?
Right, exactly.
I got a dentist appointment. Sorry.
Just wild. And of course, there's more complexities to the story. But like, yes, insane that this also happened here. Right.
Right. It was just like... You had to take a boat all the way across the Atlantic to deliver the news. So it's like, well, tough.
Fly, pigeon, fly.
Right. So we have this battle taking place, like I said, technically after the war is ended, but we're still going to get into it.
Yep.
Now, there were three... It's kind of a little bit confusing because there were three events that lit the fuse of the powder keg that led to the big battle. So, like, we have some, like, pre things.
Okay.
And then we get into some pre things.
The big battle meaning the Battle of New Orleans.
Battle of New Orleans.
Nah. Thank you.
Now, since this is down in Louisiana, there might be some French words that I struggle with a little bit because, it's been well over 10 years since I've taken a single French lesson. So.
Fair. You better get on Duolingo. Brush up on that French. Yeah.
So the first thing that we have going on is happens with Lake Borgne, Borgne. Maybe it's just born.
Maybe it's just born.
So we have Admiral Sir Alexander Cochrane of the Royal British Navy, who's commanding 60 ships, and they're all anchored in the Gulf of Mexico, east of Lake Borgne, southeastern Louisiana.
Thank you.
And they're ready to move up the Mississippi. They're ready to go take over New Orleans, make the way up north. But who's blocking their path? Lieutenant Thomas Ap Catesby Jones and his 5 American gunboats.
Aha.
Now, Ap Catesby, with a C, so it's AP lowercase, then a whole new name. Catesby is actually son of Catesby in Welsh. So, like, the AP is just like a nomenclature for, like, I'm the son of whomever.
Oh,
I thought that was really cool.
that's cool. I didn't know that.
Yeah, I was like, what the fuck? Like, what position does AP like in the military? Like, I don't know what that is.
So that's, you said rooted in Welsh?
Welsh.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's cool.
fun fact.
All right.
So we have these 60 ships being blocked by these 5 gunboats on the American side. So on December 14th, 1814, 980 British sailors and Marines quickly captured Jones's ships. But of course, there's not without casualties. The British are just like, get the fuck out of our way.
Okay.
Pop, pop. But the Brits actually wind up with 17 killed and 77 wounded. The Yanks wind up with 6 killed, 35 wounded. The rest were captured. But however, this is kind of where the Brits start to make their mistakes. Some of the men that were captured on the American side were able to convince the British that there were far more American troops than there actually were stationed in New Orleans. So they really inflated their numbers on land. So the Brits were like, shit, we better take some time to prepare.
Interesting.
Figure shit
Okay.
out. So now that the gunboats are out of the way, the Brits can now make landfall. But if you know anything about Louisiana and how broken up with the bayou and different canals, the river, it's all a bunch of different small little islands and whatnot.
Yeah.
It's going to take a long time to transport your troops. So to start off, we have the 1,600 British soldiers needed to get to a specific spot just east of New Orleans for tactical reasons.
Okay.
And they didn't have a lot of great options to do so. So in the end, it took them 6 days and nights to ferry all the troops to where they needed to go, with each transit taking 10 hours.
Oh my God.
Right. Which is wild.
Wild.
So by the time you're already like finished ferrying all of your troops, you're exhausted. Like, fuck, 10 hours just to get to a spot? Crazy.
That's bananas.
So with the exaggeration of American troops, the exhaustion of traveling 10 hours just to get your 6 days and nights to get all your troops to where they need to go, the British decide to wait for reinforcements.
Okay.
On December 23rd, General John Keane, the British, commander of the 1,600 ferried troops, now has a vanguard of 1,800 and is just 9 miles south of New Orleans.
Okay.
We have a little bit more boosted troop for the British side.
Yeah.
Keane, he has the opportunity to attack the city. And the road leading to the city isn't well defended, if at all, but instead, looking at his troops and whatnot, decides to make camp at a nearby plantation and wait for the rest of Admiral Cochrane's troops to get there. So he's just waiting for everyone to get together.
Sure.
The plantation was owned by Major Gabriel Villiers.
Okay.
Who was not excited by the British showing up, of course, and escaped their clutches, ran away from the Brits, the nearby American army, straight to their general in New Orleans.
Okay.
The commanding general of the U.S. Army in the New Orleans at the time, who do you think it is?
I don't know.
None other than General Andrew Jackson. This motherfucker.
That little bitch. Of course it was.
Mm-hmm. So this is obviously before he's president.
Yep.
So Jackson had wound up arriving in New Orleans at the beginning of December.
Okay.
So all of this British troop movement was happening at the end of December. He gets there a little bit beforehand.
Okay.
He has a victory against the Spanish and the British at the Battle of Pensacola in Florida. And that's when he learns that the British plan to attack New Orleans. And so he starts hoofing it west.
Okay. That's a long trip.
Very. So once he arrives, Jackson institutes this martial law. He's like, hey, there's a lot of Creole and Spanish population that might turn against us or go on the British side. We're going to instate martial law. No one's going to do anything without my say. And because we need to stop the British from capturing this vital entryway into the Mississippi.
Well, and also we technically don't have this land yet, correct?
Correct. Because the Louisiana Purchase doesn't happen until much later.
Right. Okay.
Which is why there's still those like Creole and Spanish folk. So Jackson winds up being able to reinforce his troops from the trip from Florida by forming an alliance with some pirate smugglers, free African Americans, and then also some Creek natives.
Okay.
Apparently, supposedly, he paid all the non-white folk the same as the white folk, which is surprising. And this boosted his forces to about 5,000.
Oh,
so he is
my God,
a big force now.
Yeah. Also, did he?
Right. I don't know. Especially like learning what he does later on.
Correct.
We get into a little bit of irony at the end of this, don't worry.
Okay.
So we get back to the morning of December 23rd. Gabriel comes rushing, the plantation owner comes rushing over to Jackson to tell him the news about the British taking over his plantation. Jackson made the decision, quote, "By the eternal, they shall not sleep on our soil," and readied for a raid that evening.
Oh my God.
Not a rave.
How powerful.
Could you imagine a rave? Glow sticks, those aren't invented for centuries.
It's like really old pacifiers. Yeah.
So with only just over 2,000 men, Jackson leads a 3-pronged attack on the British camp. It was a quick assault, really just like a pop, 1, 2, I guess 3 punch. Okay. Because there's a 3-pronged attack.
Thank you.
That the British wound up claiming victory over. Americans claimed 24 killed, 115 wounded, and 64 missing after Jackson retreated.
Oh.
The British reported 46 killed, 167 wounded, and also 64 missing.
Each side reported 64 people missing.
Maybe they just like coupled off and like went to have like a B&B up in Vermont.
Yeah.
Who knows?
The gay lovers of the War of 1812. How could I forget?
All 128 of them.
Yeah.
So while this was technically an L for the Yanks, the Brits learned and confirmed that they had underestimated the American forces. They thought they were just going to be a bunch of ragtag group of squirrel hunters, essentially.
Sure.
And this force from Jackson actually made the British pause their push into the city. They were like, oh, fuck, okay. Now let's really plan something instead of just going in and taking over this city. But this time that the British paused allowed the Americans time to heavily fortify the Rodriguez Canal where Jackson had retreated to.
Okay.
So he didn't go fully back into New Orleans.
Right.
He was just outside to what's this Rodriguez Canal.
Okay.
And that new line winds up being called Line Jackson. So that's what we'll be referring it to. That's where the Americans are holding on Rodriguez Canal.
Okay.
So on December 27th, so a few days after, the British decided to retaliate and test the new reinforced front of Line Jackson. British naval artillery sink 2 American ships, the USS Carolina, they sink the USS Carolina and then disable the USS Louisiana.
Oh.
So Jackson realizes that he still has some viable crew and guns that he can use to defend his position elsewhere. So he orders the surviving guns and crew to reposition themselves to a spot they'll be able to defend Line Jackson.
Okay.
And with the safety of the 2 ships no longer being a threat, the Brits decide to do an offensive reconnaissance, mission.
Get a lot of shit for that one, too. Jesus. My God.
So the next day, December 28th, the British Army does what is called, I guess, a reconnaissance in force to test Jackson's reinforced positions, trying to find any weak points. And I believe instead of just like a couple scouts going up ahead, you have more of like a full troop going.
Okay.
To be able to push a little bit if you need to.
Got it.
Because that's kind of what the British were trying to do here. So if any part of the line was weak, The recon group would break through and then be quickly reinforced by thousands of soldiers behind them.
Got it. Okay.
So the idea was to push on two different sides, to try the right side and the left side of Line Jackson. The right side was doing great. Right side, hold up your right hand.
You got there.
The right side was doing great. They almost broke through the line and sent the majority of the American soldiers actually retreating. However, the left side didn't have as much of good luck. The aforementioned artillery guns that Jackson pulled from the disabled ships blasted the British soldiers successfully. Blasted the British soldiers defending that part of Line Jackson successfully.
Okay.
And so despite the near victory on the right side of the line, all the troops were recalled and retreat. I believe like the commanders saw like, oh shit, we're getting fucked up. We got to come back. Like,
okay.
There wasn't enough success on the right side.
Okay.
So all in all, in this recon mission, 16 Brits were killed, 43 wounded, 7 Americans were killed, and 10 wounded.
Oh, okay.
And so with this lucky victory by Jackson, they had the opportunity to heavily reinforce the line, installing 8 new artillery batteries of varying sizes.
Got it. Okay.
A lot of big guns on the line.
A lot of big guns.
So we're getting there. We're almost there.
Okay.
New Year's Day, 1815, starts the year off with 3 hours of artillery fire. Just lobbying back and forth.
Yeah.
A bunch of different sizes of cannons and guns and whatnot. The main British army had arrived and it figured it was a good time to send some shells across Line Jackson. And of course, Americans retaliated.
Yeah.
Remembering the success that they were having on the right side of the line, General Edward Pakenham of the Brits tried to flank the U.S. line, but were repelled by Tennessee militia and Choctaw warriors.
Okay.
And so because the Americans had time to double down and reinforce their line, the UK got their ass kicked in this artillery skirmish.
Hell yeah.
The Brits hit 45 killed, 55 wounded. The Yanks, 11 killed, 23 wounded.
Yep. Now, here's my question.
What's up?
Would you rather be on the offensive or the defensive in a war?
I think it's very dependent on your location and the strategy of. Because, I mean, like, yeah, in this situation, it's great to be on the defense. You're just going up. You have giant built-up walls and defenses and artillery able to defend your spot. But, I mean, like, Normandy also had the same thing. And, like, the beaches of Normandy were taken over. Obviously not without a lot of casualties.
Right.
But eventually they were overwhelmed, you know? So it's like, it depends.
I guess that's fair. I feel like in most situations, I'd want to be on the defense.
Yeah, yeah. Well,
I think you can be more tactical there. I don't know.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and then like look at Helm's Deep and Minas Tirith.
Fair.
You have to rely on horses coming down the
Riders
mountain.
of Rohan?
Yeah.
I mean, could you imagine if they weren't there? Helm's Deep would have
all
fell.
be dead. Yeah. Anyway. So the amount of resistance the British were experiencing tanked their morale.
Sure.
Right. They're getting their ass kicked over and over again.
Right.
They were expecting, like I said earlier, an easy sweep against what was supposed to be an untrained militia, pirates, and a bunch of squirrel hunters. Daggone.
Is that your Creole coming out?
But of course, instead, they were experiencing heavy losses and shell shock.
Oh, yeah.
Yikes. So, finally, we're here, everybody. We're here. Finally, the day of the Battle of New Orleans arrives.
So this is all the lead up to the Battle of New Orleans.
Yeah, that's the pre-stuff.
Got it.
We had the pre-pre. That was the pre.
Uh-huh.
Now we're at the battle.
The battle. Okay.
Which is hilariously very short.
I love that part of history when there's like this really big lead up and then...
Right. And like, it's a huge significant battle. A lot of things happen, but the amount of time is just not, it's a moment.
Yeah.
Which is crazy. It's just one battle. So like that's kind of what you have to think of too.
Yeah, that's fair.
So finally, the day of the battle, January 8th, 1815 arrives.
Okay.
The American forces have heavily reinforced the Rodriguez Canal, constructing 3 different lines of defense. The British get a fresh 1,700 soldiers added to their rank, bringing their total to about 8,000 versus the approximately 5,700 combined American militia.
That's bananas.
And the American militia is the British, they have the Brits, the natives, and I don't know if the Spanish are fighting in this part or if they were just elsewhere in the War of 1812. But the Americans here especially have just militia from a couple different states, because it wasn't the American militia. It was, well, we have the Tennessee, we have the Kentucky militia, etc., and then of course a few native allies.
Yeah.
So that's what we got going on. General Pakenham of the Brits came up with an idea for a 2-pronged assault.
Okay.
There's going to be an attack along the west bank of the Mississippi, and then a larger frontal assault on Line Jackson along the Rodriguez Canal.
Okay.
And we're going to break down both of those assaults in a moment. But the launch of a Congreve rocket marked the beginning of the battle. A Congreve rocket. It's whoever invented this rocket. It's just like a little rocket.
It's like a starter pistol at like a race. Is that what we're talking about?
Pretty much.
And go.
Yeah. So the British artillery started firing and were matched by the American batteries.
Okay.
So we're going to break down the west bank of the Mississippi assault first. So the idea here was for the British to take control of this west bank that held the majority, if not all, of the American artillery. Once they had control, they would turn those guns onto the Americans and then help out the frontal assault.
Okay.
And surprisingly, British Colonel Robert Rennie led some light troops along the riverbank and quickly overwhelmed an underprotected redoubt of American militia, capturing the American batteries. There were some flaws in this defense over here. Weirdly, they were just mostly focusing on the frontal assault on the Rodriguez Canal.
Got it. And then we're not paying attention to.
Yeah. And so Colonel Robert was able to just rush in there, overwhelm the Americans that were there. Most of them, I believe, were probably like sailors and Marines from the ships, so they weren't land trained.
Yeah.
Whatever that would be.
I like your logic.
Right. They just needed to stand in like a barrel of water and they would have been fine.
It would have been fine. Just something that kind of like swayed every so often.
Right. Just a kiddie pool, like have their chair in a kiddie pool, a couple of beers floating along.
Exactly.
Shit, the redcoats.
We're ready.
So Robbie is able to overwhelm the Americans, and he just begins to start to celebrate when, according to a report, was shot dead by a barrage of gunfire from Line Jackson. So someone noticed what was happening on the west bank, turned a barrage of riflemen towards the British that had overwhelmed the Americans, and just volleyed rifle shot over there and killed the commander.
Oh my God.
And a few others, but like killing the commander is the important part.
Yeah.
Because this caused the Brits to panic. They didn't have a commander. They don't know what the fuck to do.
Oh, yeah.
And they're going to retreat. They're going to break away from the West Bank, but they were quickly cut down by musket balls and grape shot.
What's grape shot?
Good question.
Thank you.
Grape shot, from what I understand, is essentially like you have a cloth or like some type of container, fabric container filled with shrapnel, essentially. So it's just kind of like it's not necessarily like a shotgun buckshot,
right?
Because it can launch and spread farther, I believe.
Sure.
But it's essentially...
It's like the beginnings of a nail bomb.
Yeah. It's just kind of like a shrapnel shot.
Okay.
So they just get cut down.
Nice.
Crazy time. Now we're going to go to the frontal assault of Line Jackson.
Okay. Because the West Bank is now taken care of.
these are happening at the same time.
Oh, got it. Right. But then we see what happens. We take down the West Bank because everyone panics.
Right.
Got it. Okay.
So now we're going to move to the frontal assault on Line Jackson.
Okay.
Happening at the same time. The Redcoats had an even harder time with their direct approach. Makes sense.
Sure.
They used the morning mist to advance along to the line, but as the sun does, it rises and the mist disappears, leaving the Brits in the wide open fields.
Oh, shit.
So with clear line of sight, the Americans were able to tear apart the British with volleys of rifle fire and artillery fire.
Yeah.
There was one note, I forget in which article I was reading. It was like, yeah, these American militia were training themselves like shooting squirrels and hunting. And so like their aim was really good.
Yeah.
I don't know. I imagine that's true, but it was just like a weird anecdote. Like, these hunters are good at shooting. I was like, well, I'd hope so.
Jackson's like, imagine they're all squirrels.
Right. So British are getting wrecked out in the open, but despite the heavy casualties, they're still trying to advance on the line. Jackson at one point was just enjoying the mayhem and the destruction so much, he shouted, quote, "Give it to them, my boys. Let us finish the business today," end quote.
I hate the way people talked back then.
Let's finish this business.
Right. I hate it.
So General Pakenham's plan was quickly falling apart.
Okay.
The guys carrying the ladders to scale the reinforced walls that Jackson had built were lagging behind the initial assault. So Pakenham was like, I'm going to hustle these boys up. I'm going to lead them personally so we can get to the front line so we can scale these battlements.
Okay.
Some of the frontal assault force, having received these heavy casualties from the rifle fire and the artillery fire, tried to retreat and called for the 93rd Highlanders Regiment to assist them. But this just opened everyone up to further rifle shot from the Americans. So the 93rd wound up getting obliterated too.
Dang.
So this maneuver cost more than half the unit and the leader of the regiment all to die.
Oh my God.
Right. So while this is happening, Pakenham and his ladder troops are also blasted with a barrage of grape shot, killing the old general.
Oh, poor Pakenham.
Yeah, I mean, like the article was like, oh, he got shot and then like soon thereafter perished.
Mm-hmm.
So like, ooh.
Still.
Right. So by the time the American artillery had been captured on the West Bank, so like right when that one colonel gets blasted and killed, the full assault has descended into chaos, and the day was essentially lost. So it was too late for them to have captured those artillery on the West Bank.
Got it.
American Major Howell Tatum stated as the British were retreating and the bodies they left behind were, quote, truly distressing. Some had their heads shot off, some their legs, some their arms. Some were laughing, some were crying. There was every variety of sight and sound, end quote.
Terrifying.
Right.
Horrifying.
War is horrifying.
Yeah. The laughter is both on one hand, I understand that in a weird way.
Right.
On the other hand, absolutely disgusting.
Yeah.
Like I would hate, imagine like getting into a battle and just hearing people laughing as they're dying.
Right.
No.
You're just like, I can't believe this is happening.
Right.
I'm crazy now.
Dead.
Right. Mm-hmm. So all of this death occurred in a surprising 30-minute time span.
Wild.
Right.
Wild.
So that's why I had all of this build up, and just the battle is just a blip in time.
That's insane.
Not
that
even a blip.
30 minutes.
Right.
Crazy.
The British wound up with 2,000 casualties, including 3 generals and 7 colonels.
Jesus.
Now, casualties is wounded and dead. For those of you who aren't aware. Jackson somehow only wound up losing less than 100.
Dang.
Which is crazy.
Yeah.
So, with the British retreating into the Gulf of Mexico, Jackson returns to New Orleans, greeted with a massive celebration.
Oh, yeah.
Congress ratifies the Treaty of Ghent on February 16th, 1815, ending the War of 1812, like I said, well after the Battle of New Orleans. And then, though now considered a stalemate, the war in general, most Americans at the time, with the win at New Orleans, believed they had won the war.
Sure, I'll take it. Yeah.
During the celebration in New Orleans after the British had retreated, Jackson had addressed his troops after the battle for their courage, stating, quote, "Natives of different states acting together for the first time in this camp have reaped the fruits of an honorable union," end quote. The irony, of course, being 15 years later, this asshole displaced those same natives he just commended for their bravery.
Yes.
That's the Trail of Tears episode.
You can go back and listen to that one. I hate the raped the fruits. Ooh.
Reaped.
Oh, reaped. I thought you said raped.
No, reaped the fruits of an honorable union.
That I like that a lot better.
I don't know. I believe I said reaped. I meant to say reaped. I hope my dyslexia didn't fuck me over right there.
I feel like I could have seen him say either thing.
True,
so yeah,
right. Yeah,
so
absolutely.
it's fine.
And I don't know if he was talking about natives being this is the Tennessee militia, blah blah blah. Not the true natives.
That's what I took it as.
Yeah,
yeah, but also still ironic.
Right.
Yeah,
because they're not native.
Right. Correct.
Yeah.
30 minutes.
30 minutes.
That's
30
still
minutes.
the thing that's insane to me.
Right. And the articles I started out reading were giving me way too much military strategy and jargon and stuff like that. I was like, this is too much for a battle that only lasted 30 minutes. I don't need the whole tactical overview.
Right.
I just need the story of it. When you parse it down to just the story, it's this is a very short thing that happens. It's a 30-minute, and I expanded it to 50. So,
are you saying they hobbited it?
Yeah, I hobbited it. Yeah,
it's a 30-minute thing, and just stretch
out
that
for content.
Thing. Yeah,
but that's the Battle of New Orleans, and that's what ended essentially the War of 1812.
Wow, that's crazy,
right?
I always think, going back to wars of that time. One, there's always just such formality in some sense to them, you know what I mean? Versus obviously war today is just
chaos.
There's not a little rocket that says "and fight."
Right.
Right. But it is interesting to see kind of their military tactics to say what can you do? Because when you were talking about them going through the bayous and the canals and all that, I was like, oh, I wonder if they get into guerrilla warfare and stuff like that. But I just don't think that was a tactic at the time. Do you know what I mean?
There was I forget which part of this story they laid out where the Tennessee militia and it was either the Creek or the Choctaw that were with them had wound up chasing out some British soldiers.
Sure.
And were driving back their line a little bit. I think before the official Battle of New Orleans.
Okay.
In one of these moments, were using guerrilla tactics, but it wasn't guerrilla tactics. It's just that was how the natives were fighting at the time, It wasn't these formal lines. It was just, let's get them.
Well, because I think in your Trail of Tears episode, you talk about how some of the First Nation folk would use kind of what we would consider guerrilla tactics because they knew how to fight within the land.
Yeah. I think that was the folks in Florida.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Started with a C.
Seminole.
Yes, that's not a C, but
it's an S. It was the folks in Florida. The Seminole were they successfully were able to defend themselves within their own land.
Yeah, that's crazy. But yeah, awesome.
Yeah, that's the Battle of New Orleans. Now you can listen and sing along to the song by Johnny Horton. Well, it's not technically written by Johnny Horton. His is just the most famous version.
Again, most famous version. I've never heard that song. That's again, surprising. The banjo kind of ding, 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 ding. But but also another moment where we need to get Gail on the phone and be like, what was her obsession with this Johnny Horton song that she played it for you all the time?
She always has a song for something, so that's probably just what it was.
She is the personification of Schoolhouse Rock. Is that what you're telling me?
Yeah, essentially.
That's amazing.
All right, well, thanks everybody for sticking through this episode. Thanks for subscribing. Thanks for listening. Thanks for being here. I just said that already.
I won't thank you twice.
Right.
Okay. Yeah.
I take it back. If you haven't already, make sure to like, subscribe, and follow us on all the social medias at WDYK_podcast. I'm trying to make eye contact with the camera, but I'm like,
I don't think it likes it.
I don't think so either. WDYK_podcast. Okay, that's all. See you next time.
Bye.
Bye.